Hi guys. In this course, I plan to review all the basic topics of Laravel from scratch for beginners. Laravel is an open-source web framework, one of the most popular among PHP developers currently. It provides a structure and a starting point for your application, so you can focus on building something awesome instead of sweating the details. You can build scalable, robust, and secure full-stack web applications with Laravel faster than ever. If you are a PHP developer willing to take your career to the next level, or if you're coming from a different tech stack, this course is for you. We will start by learning the basics of Laravel, and then learn more by building a simple, yet fully functional web application using the framework. Laravel framework is largely based on the MVC architecture. MVC is a way of building a huge application by splitting it into three parts: models, views, and controllers. This makes maintaining the application easy as it grows and avoids repetition of code, along with a few other benefits. The model contains all the logic related to the application's data, like the schemas, the databases, and their fields. This is the part where you write the code to interact with the database. The view contains the user interface. All the components that the user sees on the web page and interacts with are included in the views. The controller is what connects the model and the view. It handles all the interactions between these two components. So in simpler words, the user interacts with the web page, which is the view. The controller takes the user's input from the view, uses some logic to translate that input into a request for the model grabs the data from the database, interacts with it in any other way, and finally, the controller passes this data back from the model to the view for the user to see it. Once you have this basic concept in mind during the course, you will better understand why a specific block of code is added in a particular file and not elsewhere. Now let's go ahead. According to Laravel documentation, we can install it. With this command, we install Laravel globally on the system, which I have already done. And with the Laravel new command and the project name, we give the Laravel installation command for the project we want. We open the terminal where we want to install the project and run the command. Well, in this part, since we want to have a basic project, we select None, and to create the Laravel test section, we select Pest. In this course, we are not going to talk about Laravel testing, so it does not matter which one we choose. So, we select the MySQL database and tell it to create the basic tables for us. Again, it takes a while to install everything for us. Finally, it asks us, do you want to install the Node Package Manager for your project? And we say no. So, the Laravel installation for our project is complete. We open the project in IDM. You can use any IDM that is on your system. I use PHP Storm. This is the starting point of your Laravel application. You will see this files and folders in a fresh Laravel app. The first thing to do now is to start the development server. Open a new terminal within your editor. Now run the command php artisan serve. The server is now running. You can visit this URL in your browser by clicking on it. You will see a wonderful splash screen. This is a new Laravel application. Coming back to the terminal, remember we typed this command. php artisan serve. Laravel provides a command line interface called Artisan. You can view a list of all the helpful Artisan commands by using php artisan list command. Click on a new tab, type php artisan list. Of course, if you're using Docker and Sail to run Laravel in your local system, you will have to replace php in the commands. Wherever I type php, you have to replace and type Sail instead. So this is the huge list of commands that Laravel provides out of the box. We will use a lot of these commands, like php artisan migrate, and then make, controller, make, model, and many of these. Let's go on. We are looking at a new Laravel application. Now it's time we look at the code, find out where this content is located and make some edits. This is your Laravel app code base. With these many files and folders, it's easy for a beginner to get overwhelmed at first. For the basic app that we are going to build in this course, we only need to access a few of these and we'll take it step by step. The very first thing we find out is where this content is being fetched from. In a core.php project, you need to have an index.php that is fetched when you type localhost or access the root URL. You can find that index.php within the public folder, right here, but you cannot immediately make sense of anything in this. Right? So where is the HTML content that is shown here coming from? Laravel, just like any other frameworks, has routes. They are defined in a routes file located in the routes directory, which is here. You can see two files here, but web.php is the only one we are going to use in this course. This contains all the web routes. You see we have a single route defined here, which is the base URL for our project. This returns the welcome view. This is exactly the page we are seeing on the browser. To verify, let's search for this word "let's get started" here and change it to something else. Here we go. Let me change it to "let's get started so hail" and save the file. Go back and refresh the browser. You can see that it's updated. Alright, let's go back to the routes file web.php. Let's just copy this route declaration, paste it below, and change this URL to something else, like let's say we change it to home. Now go to the browser and type /home. And you see, we see the exact same welcome view. Try accessing some other route like welcome or something and you'll get a 404 page not found error. If you go back to the routes file and comment out the first route and try accessing the base URL, this time, you get the same error. So web.php is the file where you need to register every single route in your project. We just saw that a route returns a view. We can even return any HTML code within this function, like return h1 welcome or something like that. Go to the browser, refresh the page and you see the HTML right here. But since we cannot practically return entire HTML for entire pages like this, we use separate files called views. As we saw before, views are located in the resources directory in the views directory welcome.blade.php. This is the one we opened earlier. Now let's carefully look at the code here. If you scroll to the top and then scroll down bottom slowly, you'll see something on line 24, line 26, line 33, and so on. This is neither HTML or .php. Also, these curly braces on line 28 and 35 and so on. All of this is Blade syntax. Blade is a templating engine used in Laravel. Before we talk about Blade in detail, let's create another view by creating another view file here. New file and let's name it home.blade.php. Since we wish to create a Blade template, the file name has to end with blade.php instead of just .php. Let this be a simple HTML document. With the h1 element. Hello Laravel. To display this page, we need a route. So head over to the routes file web.php. Change the home route to return the home view we created just now. So replace this with home. As you might have noticed, you don't have to type home.blade.php. It's just home. Now go to the URL /home. You can see the view that we just created. While returning the view, you can even pass some variables as second argument. Here in this routes file, let's pass in a name variable and a value like so. Name I will put in my name Sohail. Now in the home view, let's replace Laravel with the name variable. In PHP you would use echo. You would use the PHP tags and then echo $name, like so. This works perfectly fine. You can even take a look, refresh, and this works. However, in Blade you can simply wrap the variable name in curly braces like so. Now save the file, go to the browser, refresh. You see that the variable data is displayed here. Notice how much more readable this is. Blade also has convenient shortcuts for common PHP structures like if statements and for loops. For example, you can remove this, add an if statement here and say, if name equals Sohail, say hello admin. Else say hello and pass in the name variable. You also have to end this with an @endif directive. These are called blade directives. @if, @else, @endif. Now save the file and go back to the browser and refresh. So this works as expected. These definitely look much neater than plain PHP. We will come across more blade directives as we go further in our course. Blade templates are not only helpful for displaying data and replacing common PHP structures, we can also use them to build and maintain layouts in Laravel. Most web applications have the same generic layout across various pages like header, navigation bar, sidebar, and footer. Blade provides two methods for creating layouts by reusing code. First is by using template inheritance. Second is by using Blade components. Let's look at template inheritance first. Consider this web page with a navbar and a main section. The code for the same can be found in home.blade.php. So this entire markup is currently in home.blade.php, but if we need another view like an about page with the similar navbar and content section, repeating this entire code is not a good idea. So let's create a layouts folder within views. New folder layouts, add a file called base.blade.php. Copy all the code from home.blade.php into the base file. I will close the File Explorer for now. Now let's retain all the common structure. The content that would change is here, right? So let me cut it out and paste it in home.blade.php. Right. We need to define this as a section using the section directive, section. And we can call it whatever we want, so let me call this content. This has to end with an @end section blade directive. And now this is our view. We need to specify the layout this view needs to inherit, which can be done using the @extends blade directive. And here you can give the relative path to that layout which is in our layouts folder. So you could say layouts/base, or you could even say layouts.base. And now in the layouts file, in the place you wish to display the content, use the yield directive wild and then specify the name given to the section. We called it content. So content it is. So this will be replaced with the content from our blade view. You can go to the browser and verify. Refresh. Everything still looks the same. Now in the nav bar, let's say you want to get the user's name from the view. So replace this here. Go to the nav bar and replace this with @yield, name. And now this name we might want to specify from the view. So here you can add another section directive, call it name and pass in whatever value you want to. So let's say I'll put my name here and now go to the browser and refresh. Notice that the variable has been replaced with the name. All of this makes it easy to add multiple views following the same base layout. So if you want to try this out, let's create another view. Call it about.blade.php. Let's extend the same base layout, layouts.base. And here in the content let's add something else. @end section. Let's add a heading. And let's simply say about us. Or you can even copy the styling from here. Just change the text to about us. And now we need a view to show this. So go to the web.php routes. We can remove this from here. Copy this route, paste it again. Change it to about. Change the view also to about in the browser. Let's go to the about route and notice that the navbar remains the same. Of course we need to pass in the user variable here as well, so we can do that. Copy this section here, paste it here. And now we have two different views, about us and home, following the similar layout. So if you wish to change anything in the layout, maybe the color of the nav bar or something, you can do that right here in one single place, which is the base layout. Next, let's look at building layouts using Blade components. We'll only cover the basic concept in this video. This time let's create a components folder inside views similar to layouts, let's call it components. The same base.blade.php file. Copy this entire thing, or you can copy it into the components folder like so. Replace the yield directives with simple variables like within curly braces. Like this. So $name and $content. Now in the home view, replace the extents directive with an xbase tag. This also has to be the closing xbase tag. Let me put it here. Notice that we don't even have to say layouts or components or anything. Because when we use Blade components, all the files, all the components go in here. So the moment you prefix it with x, hyphen, it takes in the name from here. This looks very consistent with the markup as compared to the Blade directives. Instead of sections here we use the xslot tags. So you can say xslot and use the name attribute to specify the name of this. So in our case it will be name again. And the content of the name goes here. This again will be replaced by xslot. And here the name is content. And this closes with an xslot closing tag. View this in the browser to verify. Let's go to the home route and notice that nothing has changed. We can have multiple nested components and multiple slots this way, and this is the most common method followed by Laravel developers right now. So further in the course we will use Blade components method for our layouts and learn more as we go. Looking at our routes once again for this request, the only action is returning a view. Hence, adding it as a closure makes sense, but this is not always the case. We usually have a lot of logic that goes on for every request. For example, a login request will contain the logic to check if the user's credentials match, to log the user in or to return an error message, and more. We use controllers to group related logic into a single class. By default, controllers are stored within the app HTTP controllers directory. This is just a default controller created by Laravel for you. Now let's create a new controller using the artisan command. PHP artisan make controller. Now in the older versions you had to pass more parameters here in this command to create controllers or models. But in the newer version you can simply do this and hit enter. You will be prompted asking what the name of your controller should be. It has to follow camel case like this. So let's create a new controller calling it welcome controller, and it asks us what type of controller would you like for now. Since we don't know what the others are, let's just click empty and the controller has been created for us successfully, like I said, within the app /http/controllers directory. As you can see it is here. We can of course create this file manually and add all of this code. But using a command is quicker. Now let's add a method index using public function index. And here let's return the welcome view using return view, welcome. Go back to the routes file. Now this closure can be replaced with the action which is the index action in the controller, like so. Welcome controller, class, and the index action goes as the second parameter. Like so. And when I typed welcome controller, you might have noticed this use statement got added automatically. Now save this file. Save both the files. Go to the browser and refresh. Everything works just the same. Instead of returning the view directly here, we went through the welcome controller using an index file. So now we can add more logic into here whenever we need. So we just created our first controller and defined our route to it.